There
That's
we go.
pretty good.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Welcome everybody
We
to
got a
all
full
three
house
people
here.
watching. We got a full house.
Sir.
So today we are going to be debating which candidate is most fit for president and who you should vote for the 2020 election. So I think we're going to start off with each person just giving a brief introduction to their candidate and why they should vote for that candidate. You can start, Jose.
Okay, well, my name is Jose. I would most than likely want all of you guys to vote for Jo Jorgensen because her policies and her rhetoric are very beneficial to the U.S. Mostly her policies will help the Commonwealth, especially the middle class, and I think she's just a better option between the two because both of the two are so polarizing when it comes to politics.
Okay. I think everyone should be voting for Biden because his platform is obviously better than Trump on every conceivable issue. And while Jo Jorgensen is better than Trump on a handful of issues, I also think on a handful like healthcare, the debt and the deficit, welfare, education, she's actually worse than Trump.
Okay. I think Trump's probably the most realistic answer here just because, I mean, Joe Biden's, insane, like $3 trillion spending plans, which includes everything he wants to do, isn't even running through the House right now. I mean, it's getting rejected by House Democrats. So I don't think he'll be able to pass any meaningful legislation, unlike Trump, who has historically. He's bolstered the middle class, and I think if you give him another 4 years, he can do a much better job. Meanwhile, with Biden, I mean, I don't even know if he'll make it through 4 years.
Okay. All right. So, do any of you guys want to concede or attack
I want to
either
ask the
president?
Trump supporter what policies Trump has passed that has helped the middle class.
You could say like a job regulation cut. The jobs he's helped. He's helped the stock market, which helps a shit ton of 401ks. Wait, are you allowed to cuss?
I don't really care. I mean,
Yeah.
Anyways, he's helped bolster, so that helps bolster a lot of 401ks, Roth IRAs, which is what most people use for their retirement. So that's huge. And I mean, if you just look at middle class wages, they've gone up so much. Far more than Obama. Even if you don't even count his recession, it's only gone up like what, $1,200, and Trump's been like $2,500.
Real wage growth is 0.01%, or was 0.1% before COVID. It was stagnant. And you said that regulation has been beneficial to the middle class. Even Goldman Sachs has done analysis that show regulatory burden doesn't prevent capital investment or entrepreneurship.
Well, that's not exactly what I meant when I'm talking about bolstering the stock market. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, well, then what policy did he implement to bolster the stock market? Because I heard you bring up regulation, which obviously didn't really help or hurt the middle class.
I don't cite a specific policy. I just know that, there's a clear jump. You can look at Obama's years. There's a clear jump in the stock market.
Some specific policy if you want me to, and how it was not good, but I want your take on it.
So you don't think Trump provided substantial gains in the stock market? Or
No, I think I can actually talk specific policies. So let's talk the Tax Cuts and Job Act. That was a failure. So it massively benefited the wealthy while giving comparatively scraps to the middle class. It had no discernible impact on unemployment rate, GDP, or real wages. It provided a windfall for large corporations who had previously hoarded profits in offshore accounts. Capital investments went up by, I think it was some 20%, way less than what they had predicted. And almost all of it went to stock buybacks, which obviously don't have that much benefit to the middle class.
I mean, look, I don't know. I don't have a specific. There's not one policy that's responsible for the stock market growth. But if you look at the two graphs, it's pretty evident.
It's completely irrelevant from him, and the policy he introduced did not help the middle class.
Okay. Well, I'm saying
more. Like, you want to talk to tariffs? That wasn't very beneficial for the middle class. That was a tax.
I don't agree with tariffs. Yeah, no, I don't agree with tariffs. I'm saying
you're here to defend Trump. So
yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean I have to agree with everything he says.
The tariffs increased consumer costs by $57 billion annually. They decreased employment in the
What was it before?
Wait, what was what before?
The consumer costs.
It increased it by 57 billion. I don't.
Okay, but that's just hard for me to. Okay, I get it. It's just hard for me to visualize because it's not a percentage. Regardless, I get what you're saying, but it is a fact that Trump has bolstered the stock market 100%. Even right after elected, it completely spiked up, and the growth over the stock market has been
And
larger.
I'm asking you,
Before
what specific policies do you think he implemented to affect the stock market? Because from where I'm standing and what I've seen, none of his policies actually benefited the economy that much.
Yeah, and not to mention that president's like involvement in the economy is like only the seventh biggest factor. So president
That's
involvement
true.
isn't even
The
that
Fed's monetary
beneficial.
policy is a way bigger impact on like the stock market, GDP, and unemployment.
I get what you're saying, but it's like, what? So you don't. So you okay? So you're saying that you don't think that Trump had any hand in the growth of the stock market.
Not really. And the
So what do you
policies
think that?
he
Okay,
implemented
what
for
was the
the
switch
economy
between
didn't
that and
help
from
it.
Obama?
What about Obama?
I'm saying as soon as Trump was elected, the stock market spiked.
Shane, can you show like anything?
If you look at the percentage of stock market growth, it was higher under Obama.
What do you mean?
The percent the stock market grew under Obama's presidential terms is higher than it is under Trump's.
Okay, what year does that cut off at?
When Obama stopped being president,
Yeah,
From-
how many years is that for Trump?
I believe it was 4 years. In the last 4 years of Obama.
Okay, but we've had COVID.
Even talking pre-COVID, it wasn't even close. Because Obama pretty much recovered the market entirely from the 2009 recession, so he had really huge gains in the stock market as like terms of percentage wise.
Yeah, of course. Well, no, but that you do realize it's not fair because after recessions, you're going to have massive percentage growth in the stock market. That happens
Yeah,
always.
and
The biggest gains in the
what?
economy come right after
Obama's
recession.
stock market growth had very little to do with him.
No, look, if you just track the two graphs, you have the stock market climbing, and right after 2016, right as Trump gets elected, it completely jumps up.
Are you familiar with the term correlation does not equal causation?
Yeah, of
You're
course.
gonna have to
You
show
have
us
to show a
how.
causal relationship of what policies Trump introduced to cause that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show us like what Trump actually implemented that made the stock market increase.
Well, I don't have any
rather than
information,
correlation.
to be
Okay.
honest.
Well, I want to move on to Jo Jorgensen because she has a specific set of policies that I think would completely tank the economy. So she
Go
wants
for
to veto any new bill that would lead to a deficit and block any new borrowing. That would force the private sector into constant net losses. We would be super unsustainable.
Do you have any like study that shows that?
Sort of just basic economics that we need the Fed to loan out like bonds and IUDs, stuff like that.
I mean, I don't really believe in government subsidies. If anything, I feel like it's been hurting smaller businesses than it has.
Well, I'm not talking about
helping.
subsidies.
So what are you talking? Are you talking about like?
I'm talking about when the Fed loans out money.
Okay.
'Cause that's most of what our debt is. Our debt is 75% owned by the American public. She wants to prevent all new borrowing and veto any bill that leads to a deficit. Obviously, surpluses are bad for the economy, and deficits are stimulus.
hmm
Yeah, that's not very economically smart to prevent, deficits or block any new borrowing.
I mean, but
Why
like,
would you even want to do that? Like, I don't get the logic.
I guess it would just be to try and benefit smaller businesses to be able to compete against others, because the bigger businesses are the ones that are getting government loans and getting buybacks, like doing a lot of stuff with the government help. It's like coercion.
The Fed borrows money to small businesses.
Not nearly as much as
to like large corporations.
I do.
Like, why is the federal debt really that big of an issue? Because most economists say that, it's not.
I mean, I don't think it's like one of their top issues, but it is for sure an issue. I wouldn't say it's extremely important
about that.
I think that I mean, do you believe that we shouldn't even attack it at all?
Oh no, the deficits we have right now are fine. We don't really have a big issue with them right now.
Really? How come?
What impact do you think they have? Deficit spending are surplus. We have a growing economy. We can have deficits with really positive impact.
What's the positive impact?
A growing economy. Almost every time this country has balanced a budget or gone to surplus, we've gone into a recession. Dwight Eisenhower, he balanced the budget in like the late 50s. We had a recession. Bill Clinton in the late 90s, we had a surplus. Recession in the early 2000s. Because when you have a surplus, you don't have any stimulus in the economy.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to concede that point then. But I like to tag Joe Biden's policy on Medicare. I don't think it would be very beneficial to us, or I don't think it would be more beneficial than it is Joe Jorgensen's plan to
Okay,
reduce
well,
the cost
wait,
about
what do you
75%.
think Joe Biden's healthcare plan is? Because it's not Medicare for all.
I know it's not Medicare for all. It's just implementing what he tried with the Obamacare, but just at a bigger scale.
Yeah, it's an expansion of the ACA with a public option, which would insure 18 million Americans. That would save a lot of lives.
Okay, do you have any study that shows that like the being uninsured is what makes you die?
Yes, the Massachusetts, they did a lot of healthcare reform. I believe it was like the mid 2000s, and they found that for every 830 people they insured, they saw one less preventable death.
What does it mean by preventable death?
The people who die because they don't have insurance.
Okay, but like, does that take into consideration things like, or they could have died on the spot rather than being able to reach the hospital at all? So like, where
I
they die
would
on
have to
site.
look specifically at the study, but I know that the study found that for every 830 people they insured, they saw one less death as a result of uninsurance.
I mean, to me, that's just a correlation. You haven't shown me like a causation because of it.
I mean, we can look up the study if you really want to.
Yeah, let's go into it.
Because
Because I'm just kind of curious on how it was actually caused by insuring them rather than there being a correlation.
I also feel like education could help a lot of this, because if you actually dive into statistics, a lot of people who aren't insured right now aren't doing it because they're not financially responsible. In other words, they have the actual income to have some type of insurance plan, but they don't have the education to get one from the government or a private company to be insured in the first place. So I'm not saying like every person could get insured or has the money for it, but a lot of people that aren't currently insured do have the money for insurance. They just aren't financially responsible or don't have the education to go out and get an insurance plan. So that would save a lot of money if you could get people insured that already have the ability of getting insured by just reaching out to them, educating them.
I don't think you want to
necessarily-
bring up Trump's healthcare. The CBO found that Trump care would increase uninsurance by 22 million.
Trump care won't pass.
Exactly, because it's such a garbage piece of legislation.
I mean, like 90% of Bernie Sanders stuff wouldn't pass either. But I wouldn't say
Okay,
that
well, we're
necessarily.
not talking about Bernie Sanders. We're talking about
Talking about
Trump's
Joe
terrible
Biden.
healthcare
But
proposal and
it's
Biden's
not-
comparatively way better one.
I know, but
But
just
then
because
Joe Jorgensen's comparatively better than both of them.
No,
Yes.
Joe Jorgensen is operating the false premises that markets function in healthcare, which they don't.
I mean, they do. Whenever you get rid of patents, you get rid of subsidies, and you get rid of deregulations. Or
Okay,
you
then
deregulate the
why
market.
is the most cost-effective healthcare plan in this country Medicare? Significantly more cost-effective
Because
than
of government
private insurance.
involvement. Because there's no, if it's either government no government involvement, which will benefit us dramatically. What Joe Jorgensen's plan of 75% reduction rate of cost for healthcare by eliminating things like government involvement.
Private insurance will always have excessive administrative burden. The
How come?
administrative cost of Medicare are about 2%. The administrative cost of private insurance are about 17%. You're always going to have that burden no matter how much you attempt to deregulate the market. And healthcare, like I said, doesn't operate within a market setting. Hospitals are naturally going to be like monopolies in most areas. How are you going to bring more competition to an industry that is effectively a monopoly?
I mean, you can bring like competition to a free market when there's not where like starting up a business, it wouldn't be so difficult, and having to make sure you meet certain criteria, or your other competition is getting subsidies, and there's drugs that are getting patents, the FDA having such a long wait time to even approve drugs. Like there's so many things that that you have to factor in when you're talking about not being able to start a price competition in the markets.
Rural communities have basically one hospital. That hospital has a monopoly.
Yes.
How is competition going to lower prices in those communities?
Even if we here, how about we go away from hospitals and we talk about private insurance, right? Because
Okay.
I think that private insurance would be very beneficial to us if we had a competition rather than a competition nationwide than it was regional wide, where there's only 2 to 3 insurance companies.
I mean, there have already been attempts to sort of open up markets for healthcare, and they've failed. The funniest
Yes,
one
because
is
they weren't done correctly.
is the interstate sale of insurance, which is a common belief that is what we should do to the insurance market. But 6 states have done that, and after they introduced those legislations, there was not a single new insurer because healthcare is just not a market setting.
Okay, but what other factors did it eliminate? Because you can't just eliminate one thing and expect that the others are just gonna fall with it. Because if you just get rid of one thing, like let's say subsidies, patents are still going to be available. Regulations in the market are still going to be available, and they're still going to affect them just as much. You have to get rid of all of it and all of it together, or else it just won't work as effectively.
So there should be no regulation within the healthcare industry.
I think we should deregulate it at this moment. I think the end goal should be no regulations, but at this moment,
regulations that save lives, like the.
Whenever you're talking about that, you do know that hospitals and private insurances will have to compete to try and make the better effective insurance or hospital, whatever you want to call it. You want to make it so that they're the best, so therefore you can so-and-so make
I really don't like the idea of for-profit insurance companies determining my health over what's profitable.
Well, I mean, it's you as the consumer who has the most power, because if you don't believe that they are providing the greatest amount of health or the greatest amount of health care, you were able to
existing conditions who are not profitable to insurance companies.
I mean, I think that they will be able to do so, because I mean, you're just kind of getting
people with pre-existing conditions are not going to be treated in a completely deregulated, completely market-based healthcare system because the private insurances don't want to cover them.
Okay, but whenever you're talking about pre-existing things, it would just be very detrimental for them to have a bad rep of not accepting others because of profit. You would be considering profit over the health of others, which
up
would
until
be
the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies did that.
What do you mean? Can you repeat that?
Up until the Affordable Care Act, it was routine for private insurance companies to kick people with pre-existing conditions off.
Yes, again, because they aren't losing anything because they have government intervention with them.
What? No, you're saying that the companies couldn't have the burden of not accepting.
I'm not saying that they couldn't have a burden. They can discriminate if they want, but it would just not be very beneficial for their reputation.
Pre-existing conditions.
It would not be very beneficial for their reputation if it was just to be a price, or if it was to be a competition in the market.
Why did they do it before the ACA?
Again, because there's other government factors that are allowing them to do so. Because
you're not answering the question.
I am, because I'm saying that you can't just focus on one thing.
If you completely deregulate the insurance market, then all of a sudden they'll start providing insurance for people with pre-existing conditions. What kind of logic is that?
It's competition logic where you have
they don't want their service because they're not profitable to them.
Okay, but they also have a reputation to guard, and it can't lose that reputation.
Doesn't matter. The reputation is irrelevant.
It literally is irrelevant. It is relevant.
I want you to answer me this: why did they not accept the people with pre-existing conditions prior to the Affordable Care Act?
I've already answered, because they have coercion with the government where the market.
How are these two related? How does deregulating the market mean all of a sudden they'll accept people who are not profitable to them?
Because they have a reputation to take care of. I don't know how else to explain this to you, Harrison.
I don't think I'm hoping everyone who's watching this can see that this has no relevance. The deregulation of the healthcare market will not lead to these people with pre-existing conditions all of a sudden becoming profitable.
Do you guys want to move on to a different point?
Yeah, Jo Jorgensen and welfare. That's a good one.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
She wants to completely get rid. Oh, wait. I forgot one thing to bring up with the healthcare. Is it correct that she wants to completely get rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA?
Yes.
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, wait, no, not the VA. I don't believe she wants to get rid of the VA.
Medicaid,
I think she wants the option to opt out of them.
So Medicaid covers 61 million Americans. It keeps 2.6 million Americans out of poverty, and it reduces out-of-pocket payments.
It takes them out of poverty.
$500 per beneficiary.
How?
Because
does it take them out of poverty?
Because they're not having to pay so much for healthcare.
Okay, but with Joe Jorgensen's plan of deregulation and getting rid of government involvement,
Medicaid is cheaper than private
it would make
insurance.
it cheaper. Okay, but like what Medicare or not
Private
Medicare,
insurance will
what
never be able to
Medicare?
compete with the administrative costs of Medicare and Medicaid.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry, you're cutting out for me.
Okay, so Medicare and Medicaid have incredibly low administrative costs. Private insurance will never be able to keep up with that simply for the basis that they're for profit.
Sorry, I just blanked out. I am so sorry. Can you repeat that one more time?
Okay, so Medicaid and Medicare have very low administrative costs. Thanks to the for-profit nature of private insurance, they have significantly higher administrative costs. They're never going to be able to compete on a cost basis with government insurance.
It will not be able to compete in a cost basis. Are you arguing that because of well, I would just argue that it's not a free market, so they wouldn't be able to like compete against one another to the extent that it's not for profit anymore. It's more for reputation and being able to stay up as a business.
All right, I want to I remember that about the Medicare and Medicaid welfare. So does Joe Jorgensen want to completely get rid of all welfare programs, or is it a bit more?
I think she wants to diminish them to some extent, and I think she wants people to be able to opt out on them.
But again, these programs have lifted people out of poverty. In 1968, the supplemental poverty rate was 24%. Today, it's at 14%. That is mostly down to stability programs like SNAP and like Medicaid.
Yeah, and again, she, like I said, she wants them to be able to opt out of them, so they would be able
why would someone opt out of a public assistance program?
Because that public assistance is literally just incentivizing them to stay in there because they won't be able to find a better job that will pay for them.
Why would
they would be able to? They would minimum wage is not as good as. Sorry, can you say that again? Because I was
why can someone on food stamps not find a good job?
Cannot find a good. I mean, it just depends on the region,
I think it's 80% of the working adults on SNAP work full time.
Yeah, but they're the job that they voluntarily contracted to aren't paying them as well as they believe they should be paid.
Okay, so why would you get rid of food stamps?
We're not. We're trying to diminish.
Okay, why would you scale them back? Why would you scale them back?
Because we want other people to be incentivized to better the market, to find a better job where they believe that their labor is at a good cost.
So if they're starving, that's going to incentivize them to
no, it's not.
No. Okay, wait.
There are so many unnecessary things in SNAP. Like, for example, there are hundreds of billions of dollars in SNAP program being wasted on things like gum, candy, ice cream, cake. Personally, if we're going to give you some supplemental money to purchase food and sustenance to live off of, I don't think it should be going towards cake, ice cream.
Can poor people not have cake or chew gum?
What?
Can poor people not chew gum or buy cake? Why are you going to dictate that?
Because it's because it's increasing their obesity levels, and if you're gonna give someone food to live off of,
cake. I'm not obese.
Okay, but poor people do have a big problem with obesity. That's just a fact. But the point is, I still don't agree with wasting hundreds of billions of dollars on things like candy and ice cream and cake. It should go towards nutritious products that actually help people to live. Most people don't live off ice cream. There's no reason that we should be wasting hundreds of billions off things like ice cream and cake. It's just so unnecessary.
I would have to look at specifics, but I'm very doubtful that most of SNAP is spent on candy and stuff like that.
I'm not saying I never said most of. I said a substantial portion is 100%.
Okay, what number is
hundreds of billion?
100 billion?
No, hundreds of billions were spent, but it is 100%. It's a substantial percentage.
What's the number on it?
Probably 20, 30 to 40%, I'd say.
20, so 40% of SNAP is spent on candy and ice cream and junk food.
Yes, and soda as well. Yes.
No, I find that surprising. But
what do you think?
I don't think the state should mandate that. I don't want a state telling people what they can and can't buy with their SNAP, as long as it's food.
I do.
It's a little bit dystopian and authoritarian, if you're gonna ask me.
Talking about authoritarian, I mean, Joe Biden does want to get rid of all guns, does he not?
No, he doesn't.
A lot of guns, though.
His gun platform is a voluntary buyback, universal background checks, and a national registry. How is
That's
that
more
getting rid of all
Why would
guns?
you say? Why would you say we need background checks?
Because they've been proven to reduce homicide rate.
I'm gonna need to see a study for that. Actually, I haven't heard that. I mean, if anything, I would just say that they've just been replaced by other things. I don't think the homicide maybe by guns have been reduced, but I don't think homicide in general has been reduced.
No, I mean Joe Biden, like he's literally trying to remove protections that the gun manufacturing and gun industry has that prevents people from suing them when their guns are used in like a wrongful death. So let's say like you're drunk driving in like a Toyota Tundra and you crash, the people shouldn't be able to sue Toyota. That makes no sense. Joe Biden is currently trying to strip that protection, which makes no sense. He's trying to cripple the entire gun industry. Like, why would you remove that protection? That's just showing his underlying motives that he's literally trying to kill the gun industry. That's insane.
I mean, again, from what I've seen, he only really supports like the only major gun
Buybacks.
policies is a universal background check, a national registry, and a voluntary buyback program.
No, he's literally trying to remove the protection that gun industries have from being sued on wrongful death lawsuits.
I don't know specifically about that.
Yeah, well, it's on his website. Regardless, I mean, look, he wants to ban the manufacture of assault weapons. It's not just like, it's not just stuff like you can opt in or universal background check. It goes a lot more than that. Like, I don't see any valid reason to ban ARs.
And also with the assault rifle ban under Kennedy, didn't gun manufacturer like production go up as well, just on other guns?
Yeah,
I believe so. I'll have to study.
So like he also wants to ban ARs. Like that's pretty ridiculous. And he also talks about like wanting to institute like magazine limitations. This is some crazy shit. He's trying to remove the only tool that people have to resist tyranny.
Okay, this study found that universal background checks were associated with a 14.9% lower overall homicide rate.
Okay, well he can debate that because I'm not disputing that.
Can you send me the link to that on the private chat, please? And if you guys want, we can move on to something else, like foreign policy.
I think guns are pretty good for now.
I want to talk about Trump's immigration.
Yeah. Ooh, immigration. We'll get into that.
This is kind of. I'm going to kind of differ on this from you, Harrison. What do you believe? Do you believe in open borders or vetted borders?
I'm a huge proponent of immigration. Open borders is a pretty vague term that doesn't have a lot of meaning, but yeah, I'm very pro immigration. And I consider Biden's platform to be very good on immigration.
I would say that Joe Jorgensen's platform is very good for immigration.
What's Joe Jorgensen's platform?
Citizenship for the Dreamers. I can't tell if she supports a pathway to citizenship. It's kind of vague.
Well, it's because she doesn't. Her website doesn't really go into it, but she's talked about it in interviews on how she wants to be more for open borders, allow workers to come into the U.S. more frequently, and just grow our economy as one.
Yeah, I'd agree. But Trump has put a moratorium on all immigration coming into the country to quote unquote protect American workers. I mean, he's attempting to deport as many illegal immigrants as he can. He's tried to repeal DACA. What's good about his immigration policy?
Thankfully, the DACA thing's dead in the water.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yep.
Yeah, but he still tried it, so that's just kind of something rhetoric.
Yes.
And I would also say that he was becoming very authoritarian with his new wanting to put people in prison because of burning the flag.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous.
Also, Harrison, this literally just says that firearm deaths rates go down, but not like homicide rates in general.
If you
they can be replaced by.
If you go to the results section, when examined individually, universal background checks and violent misdemeanor laws were significantly associated with lower overall homicide rates, and shall issue laws were significantly associated with higher homicide laws. After simultaneously controlling for all 10 firearm laws, universal background checks were associated with 14.9% lower overall homicide rates.
Is that homicides in general or by?
Yeah,
where is this?
overall, it's in the results section.
Results. Okay, I found out. Over 26 studies. In 2016, overall rates range from 1.3 per 100,000 in Maine, New Hampshire, and Louisiana. For all, this just okay. Universal background check associated with 14.9 homicide rates. Other 7 laws. In a falsification test, each one of these 3 laws have been significantly associated with only fire. It really just says in falsification test, each of these 3 laws was found to be significantly only associated with firearm-related homicide rates, and non-firearm-related not with non-firearm-related homicide rates.
No, overall homicide rate doesn't.
Yeah,
just
but it
mean
says in the falsification test, each one of these 3 laws was found to be significantly associated only with firearm-related homicide rates, not the non-firearm-related homicide rates. It's right under table 2, at the very end of the next paragraph. So yeah, I would just argue that the homicide rates don't go down; they're just being replaced with other weapons.
Again, where are you seeing this? Because it says when examined, like.
When examined individually, do you see that paragraph? When examined individually, universal background checks and violent misdemeanor laws were significantly associated with lower overall homicide rates. You see that paragraph at the very end of that paragraph.
Yeah.
Each of these 3 laws was found to be significantly associated only with firearm-related homicide rates.
That's what it said. I just pasted it in the chat.
Yeah, there's the paragraph. See, I wouldn't say it's very effective when lowering homicide rates. Maybe firearm homicide rates.
The amount of homicides that were committed.
Where it doesn't, maybe by firearms, but not.
Yeah. The overall number.
When you're restricting something, if we were to restrict,
wait, do you think that the section you just pasted? Do you think that means homicides weren't lowered?
It says that the laws that were associated,
but the overall number of homicides that were committed went down.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so just because non-firearm related homicide rate was unchanged or didn't go down doesn't mean the overall rate didn't go down.
I'm sorry, I'm failing to see how you're trying to make a point here. All I'm hearing is that you're contradicting yourself.
Less people died. That's what I'm trying to say.
Less people died by guns, yes.
Overall.
But I literally just showed you that these laws implemented were only to firearm-related homicide rates, not by non-firearm-related homicide rates.
The amount of people that were didn't die as a result was at a lower rate, even if non-homicide rates didn't go down.
Okay, but homicide rates could be literally if a criminal is wanting to do a criminal activity, let's say murder, and he is not able to get in hand a gun, he will be able to use something like a knife, like a rope to choke them, etc. Like you can use other weapons other than a gun to commit murder.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so I don't know what you're trying to argue here, because I'm just saying that the gun death rates might have gone down, but death rates. Those gun deaths that supposedly went down were probably replaced with other weapons.
Oh, okay. I'll try to explain this in the easiest or most least complicated way possible.
Sure.
It reduced gun-related homicides. We're both saying that.
Yes.
The reduction in that rate meant that the overall homicide rate reduced.
But I'll try to explain this again. Those deaths that were reduced by guns could be replaced by others. So we could see a decrease in guns and see an increase in knife homicides. So that's kind of what happened with the UK whenever they banned all guns.
Increase in the overall rate.
What?
There wasn't an increase in the overall rate.
Your study doesn't show this, though.
Yes, it does. Do you not understand the distinction between the overall rate and then the non-gun homicide rate? These are two things. By
the laws, by these laws, these three laws was found to be significantly associated only with firearm-related homicide deaths. So you're not showing a causation. All you're saying is a correlation then.
The study
Because
found
the study even shows that the study even says that it was the significantly associated only with the firearm-related homicide deaths.
dude, I don't know how I can explain this any better.
I don't know how I can explain this to you again this either.
Overall homicide rate, the rate in which homicides occurred decreased thanks to these laws. Now, non-gun related homicide might have been, it was unchanged, but that is irrelevant to the point of overall homicide rate being reduced.
Okay, but if people are still killing at the same rate, but just with
They're
different
not killing at the
weapons,
same rate. That's what the study found. There was a 14% reduction in the overall homicide rate.
okay, but literally
Yeah,
that's
this is
not
to a different point.
okay. Sorry, but
This
that was
is
not
just going
due
in
to the
circles.
laws.
It is.
All right.
It literally says in its own study that it's not. Okay.
It just blows my mind you can't comprehend the difference between the two.
It just blows my mind how you literally you're doubting your own study. Your own study says that the laws.
There's two different things here. The breakdown of the homicide rate might have been unchanged, but the overall rate at which homicides were committed were lowered. There's two different issues. It's not like one.
Okay,
one
fine. Let's say I can see this. Let's say I can see this, but that is just a correlate because literally your study only says that these three laws was found to be significantly associated only with firearm related homicides. So even if let's say that the homicide rates
that reduction in gun related homicide meant that there was a reduction in the overall amount of homicides.
Those homicides could have been exchanged for another weapon. Let's move on.
Guys, all right, let's move on to I don't know, like criminal justice reform or something like that.
Oh,
maybe
Joe Jorgensen wants to end the war on drugs, which will be very beneficial for us.
Yeah, Joe Biden is pro marijuana legalization. He's pro ending cash bail. He's pro ending.
Joe Biden also did a lot of. He's literally in the reason why we are into this like war on drugs. He approved of it. He also implemented very minimum years. What minimum sentencing?
Yeah, his platform is getting rid of mandatory minimums. It's getting rid of cash bail. It's getting rid of private prisons. It's legalizing marijuana.
It's not decriminalizing all drugs, which I believe we should do.
Okay, that's okay.
I mean, decriminalizing all drugs. Would you not say that decriminalizing all drugs would reduce the incarceration?
I'm for decriminalizing all drugs, but
okay, Joe
Biden's platform is still pretty good on the issue of criminal justice.
It's okay. It's pretty good, but Joe Jorgensen's is better.
Well, Joe Jorgensen isn't going to win.
We're not arguing on the probability. We're arguing who's more fit to be president.
Yeah, I think someone with a chance to win president is more fit to be president.
I think someone with the better policies and better rhetoric should be more fit for it.
Wait, hold on. Would you say that Joe Biden is closer to your views on criminal justice than Donald Trump?
Yes, but I do believe that you should still vote for Joe Jorgensen because you can
even though that action helps Trump win, which means you're going further away from your beliefs on criminal justice.
No, you're voting for your candidate. Whether she wins or not it's up to democracy, but you are choosing who you believe will do the most good. Anyway, it's not like a third party is never won.
You're enabling a candidate who is further from your beliefs.
Harrison, it's also not like a third party has never won.
Not in the last 100 years. No, a third party has not won.
They really became one of the two major parties right after the Republicans won with Abraham Lincoln.
I'm talking the last 100 years. 1860 was a long time ago.
But look, it still can happen. It's not like it's impossible.
Yeah, that 2% that Joe Jorgensen is really going to show the establishment.
If she was able to go to the debate stage versus both of them, she would have a much higher following. She's already getting federal funding now. And I think that she has like a pretty decent chance now.
Couldn't even make the debates, and he was way more popular than Joe Jorgensen.
Who?
Harry Johnson couldn't even make the debates.
He had around what, like a 3% popular vote?
Yeah, and Joe Jorgensen is nowhere near that.
Let me look at Joe Jorgensen.
Harry Johnson, I believe, got 6% of the popular vote.
And it's 15% is needed, right, to go into the debate stage, or is it 5%?
I believe it's 10%.
10. Do you know, Connor? Do you know her popular vote percentage right now?
Somebody in the last debate, somebody said it was 1%, but I don't know where it came from, so I can't confirm
she's
it.
at 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
Let's look at this up. But even so, we're not debating on who's more likely to win. We're debating on who's more fit.
The environment is another issue where I have a lot of problems with Jo Jorgensen.
Okay.
Yeah, her plan is pretty much just like nuclear energy, which
I think we should. Do you not believe we should deregulate
I
the
believe we
nuclear?
can expand nuclear, but it's not at all the answer to the current climate crisis.
I don't think that it is the only answer, but it is one of the big factors that can help.
We can't rely upon nuclear to get us out of this. Do you know how long it takes to build nuclear energy?
I do believe it is around 10 years.
Planning to operation time can be in excess of 20 years. That is significantly less time than what we have to restructure our energy system.
But I still believe that it will be very beneficial for us.
Even though it's a long way, we can't rely upon it. We need to act swiftly and quicker. Wind and solar take about 2 to 4 years.
And they're not very effective.
What? I believe it's Denmark operates on like, was it 80% of their energy is wind?
I can search it up for you if you want. Denmark. Wind power. Wind power. They only for up to 2014, the record it was only 39% of total power consumption was by wind.
30%. Yeah, it's pretty effective. I think they're 100% renewable too.
I do believe we should be 100% renewable, which is something that we kind of aren't right now.
Okay, so the UN says that we have 12 years to completely restructure our energy system. Nuclear will not get us to that within the timeline. That's my main issue. And then nuclear is also extremely expensive.
It is extremely expensive, but when it's privatized, I think it will be very beneficial.
Okay, it's about 151 megawatts an hour. Offshore wind is 43, and utility scale solar is 41. Not even
what was the nuclear one? What was the nuclear?
Megawatts an hour.
Sorry, you cut out again. Megawatts per hour. Nuclear megawatts around 4.6 million megawatts per hour is by nuclear. Let's look at wind. And wind is only 1.5, so that's around double or more than. I would say around double.
And it's triple the cost.
And it's double the efficiency. I mean, as it should be. Would you not say that the more effective it is, the more it costs?
It produces double the energy, but it's triple the cost.
Okay, but even so, wind would disrupt like the ecosystems around it, and it would take up much more area.
No, nuclear is not even emission free.
It's not. I never said it was.
Yeah, wind and solar are less pollutant than nuclear.
But they still disrupt their ecosystems. And you also
when you build a nuclear plant, you're going to disrupt the ecosystem.
Like one nuclear plant.
There has to be some small scale destruction of the environment.
Yeah, there can be some small scale destruction, but like nuclear is more effective, and it has not less, but it's less than what it should be for how much it's producing.
No, it isn't. It's okay. So you looked up the numbers. It produces double the energy. It is triple the cost.
Triple the cost when its effectiveness is better. Why would it not cost more? Maybe not triple, but that I would just argue because we're not having an industry right now. We're allowing competition.
Competition within utilities? How does that work?
Competition within providing power.
Most utilities are like natural monopolies. Nuclear is the same.
Is that because of the market, though?
No. Geographical monopolies exist. And
yes,
it's
they do.
Mostly within utilities.
Okay, but like if they're able to, okay, hold on. Let me find what's needed for nuclear.
Like this is true for any utility. There's going to be a geographical monopoly.
But that's not even. But like, okay, but the competition could be within nationwide rather than region-wide. Would you not say so?
I just don't
Because
get what
I
you're
would say that
saying.
there's a lot of like not soil, but like environmental like needed things to implement nuclear plants. And I would say that there's like quite a few around not quite a few, but quite a bit where there's enough for it not to be a monopoly within our industry within the industry.
Shane, do you have anything?
Well, I just think that, like, if you look at least for the U.S., the problem with solar is that they need large batteries to store the energy. Nuclear doesn't really require that, so it ends up making the actual efficiency of solar panels way more than nuclear. Like, if you just look at the U.S., right, some of like the cheapest military contracts for cheap solar plants is like 2K per kilowatt. But since U.S. solar plants only operate like 25% per capacity factor because they use sunlight, so anytime there's overcast or the sun's blocked or it's winter, the solar panels don't operating at peak operating temperatures, efficiency. The cost per capacity adjusted kilowatt is $8,000. But if you look at it for nuclear, at least in the U.S., the four power plants we have in Georgia and South Carolina, the initial cost is $6,700 per kilowatt because of upfront costs, and then it jumps down to $4,900. So the average is $6,500, which is still 30% less than solar, because they're able to operate at peak efficiency for 90% of the time because it doesn't rely on wind or energy. So all I'm saying is that the problem with solar and wind is just like Germany. Germany has constant power outages because they rely so much of solar and wind on their power grids that when there's not enough sun, there's not enough wind, and they have extensive power outages. That's why it's a failure to move most of your energy, or at least a substantial portion of it, to solar and wind, because you kill communities because they have constant power outages. It's just not reliable.
Well, again, but they
not
are
reliable.
able to address the needs of what we need to completely restructure our energy grid. Nuclear cannot do that within the time frame.
Okay, but within the time frame, you're also hurting. You're hurting like not businesses, but you're hurting like our power because we're so dependent on
the coal fire power industry.
What? Sorry,
you're hurting the coal fire power plant industry, but you're spurring a whole new industry of green tech.
I mean, you are hurting it, but you're also hurting like our power consumption, and it's not meeting to the criteria that we are using. So like it's not meeting to how much we are using.
What?
Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so like the wind and you said solar, right? The wind and solar energies are not meeting to the amount that we are consuming, and they are not like they are dependent on other things, on other variables, like how much sun is out, if they're overcast, if it's windy or not. So like like Shane said, they are operating on batteries, which made Germany do many blackouts for extended periods of time, which is very detrimental to us as an economy and as a population.
I mean, again, I'm not against nuclear as an energy. I just think we need more short-term solutions.
But the short-term solutions aren't reliable.
I wouldn't say that solar and
it's not a solution.
You cannot rely upon nuclear energy to solve the crisis.
I don't think we should just solely rely on nuclear.
Then what other renewable energy are you going to use?
I mean, we could also use those, but
we need wind and solar in the grid to get us off the fossil fuels. Well, we also invest in nuclear.
Yes, we should. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we should do that.
All right. I think we kind of beat that up a little bit. Do you want to move on to foreign policy?
Okay.
Sure. I don't think we should be like involved in almost anything, especially in the Middle East. I think we should bring back the troops.
The thing is, these are very complicated issues that you can't just say we're going to pull the troops out. That can.
I don't think it's just just saying it and then just a snap of a finger they're back. I think we should just try and do it as fast as possible. Well, right now we're just doing it slowly.
Possible.
Yes, I think we should do it as fast as possible.
Or you get a situation like what Trump did to the Kurds, where you pull American troops out and they get slaughtered. There has to be proper exit strategies, which I don't think Jorgensen has laid out.
I don't think any president has laid out.
Yeah.
But do you believe that what's the reason for us to be in other countries like the Middle East?
There's not, and I don't agree with those wars, but we have to think about how we exit them very delicately.
Okay, I agree with you, but I think that we don't need to be over there. So why are we still over there? When okay,
As if we were to leave irresponsibly, we would further decimate the region.
But neither president has either plan to leave responsibly or irresponsibly. None of them have addressed on whether we should leave the wars or not.
I believe Biden said that he wants to withdraw troops.
From
It's not
where?
a specific plan.
From where?
I believe it's both Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh, the ones that would not put us in there, but like sent multiple troops in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's trying to solve his own problems.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we should make a president. We should vote for a president who's trying to solve his own problems that he created for us.
But if he's offering a solution that is better than the man who will likely become president,
I think someone who's also offering a solution
the conflicts.
Okay, but when you're trying to think about someone who isn't causing us problems and offering a solution at the same time.
Joe Jorgensen's solution is we're gonna pull out 200,000 troops. That's it. There's no nuance. There's no details to it.
Mm-hmm. Do you not agree with it though?
Yeah, I agree. We should have a plan to get out of the Middle East.
Okay, I agree with you as well.
All right, but again, Joe Jorgensen gives no details, which I'm not a fan of.
Concerned about. I mean, you agree with the policy, but you're concerned on how they're gonna perform.
Well, I don't know the policy yet.
The policy is just to bring back the troops as quickly as possible from ineffective wars.
There's no details in that.
Yeah, I will agree with you. She hasn't put any details onto it.
So it's not a policy.
She has a plan. She has a plan, but not.
No, there is no plan. What's the plan?
Or she has a goal.
Okay, there you go. With no details how to get there, which is concerning.
She said it in some interviews. I just haven't looked into it as much as I should.
All right.
I mean, is there anything else we should?
Hello?
Yeah.
You guys hear me fine?
You wanted to say something?
Hi. I mean, I'm just hopping in. I'm pretty anti-imperialist on most fronts, but I would wager that libertarian and laissez-faire ideals has led to the empowerment of nations such as China, which then have their own expansionist and imperialist policies that can endanger our own country. So how would you think about addressing foreign problems such as that, which laissez-faire policies have led to and can endanger us in the long run?
China barely has implemented any laissez-faire policies.
I didn't say that. I said us implementing laissez-faire policies led to large investments in China, putting them at the spot they are now.
I mean, I think that was just it was due to them agreeing to those policies, right?
That doesn't make it less of a problem now currently, though.
I would say that's just, I mean, they could just pull out, can they not?
Yes, but because of free market capitalist ideas without any sort of national restriction on investments, it leads to businessmen investing in China and not in our own nation. What this creates is a global power with other imperialist and expansionist ideals on the other side of the ocean. There isn't a neat fix for this in unrestricted capitalism without setting some rules for foreign investment and other deals like that. How would you, as a libertarian, frame that as a problem that can be solved?
What rules would you want to implement?
He's asking you.
I mean, I don't.
You're purporting a candidate, right? I kind of thought.
Yes.
So,
but I mean,
libertarian ideals don't address it at all. They allow it to happen and continue to grow. I'm saying that if there was to be a solution, it would have to be through some form of legislation, enactment of rules that would be violating traditional free trade agreements.
How is that violating traditional free trade agreements? Because it's literally they're both.
What?
Are they not? Are they not both agreeing to one?
Oh my God. No, but any solution for the problem which has been caused by unrestricted free trade and investment would be a violation of free trade. So you either allow the problem to continue on the ideals of free trade, or you address it, which then violates free trade and is generally against libertarian principles.
I don't think that is that big of a problem for us to address it.
You don't think China's a problem?
No, I think that if it's providing us a good product and it's It's doing
It's-
good. I don't know how that's a problem.
It's actually not about the product. It's about the empowerment of a society that doesn't care at all for our existence and is currently on the brink of war with India, which if were to occur, we would be dragged into regardless of isolationist policy or not, as it would be much more higher stakes than something such as World War II.
So it's not a problem with capitalism, is it then? If you're saying that
It is, because capitalism, how isn't it? Capitalism is what led to this point. Capital has no national
you literally
allegiance, and with unrestricted rules.
You
It
just said
leads to the
yourself that isolated. Even if we were to isolate, we would be able to see this.
It's isolation and free investment in the country are not mutually, like, these are not the only two options. I'm talking that normal libertarian ideals of free trade, isolationism and free trade aren't completely incompatible. Isolationism generally refers to conflict, imperialism, stuff of that nature. Free trade of commodities is generally not outruled by that. If this leads to the empowering of a nationalist, imperialist, expansionist country on the other side of the world that rivals us in almost every capacity, how is that not a problem that requires some form of solution and thinking?
I would just say we should just warn investors on like the possibilities of us going into the wars. We should educate our investors more on what they're actually investing in.
I don't think they care. I think they're going to China for those consumer goods.
The investors know better than you or I would, and telling them is as funny as taking a class in business ethics, which I have done.
I mean, I guess I just don't have an answer for your question, and I'm sorry.
But if you see that having no real answer from a libertarian platform for like rising national issues that occur like pretty on par every 50 to 100 years, if you look at history, do you not see that as a major like issue?
I think. Sorry, I had something in my throat. I don't think I'm the best suited for this question. I think there's other people who probably know more about libertarian ideology better than me and will be able to explain imperialism and the effects it has due to the free market.
Okay. I just say this because on most levels, I agree with any form of anti-involvement. I just think that libertarianism as a whole doesn't take the economic steps necessary to preventing those problems from happening. I don't think we should be in the Middle East at all. I disagree with the way we take out leaders as they arise and cause power vacuums. And I also just disagree with how a large supply of our capital is getting invested in a money market like China that partakes in currency manipulation to devalue our dollar and empower their own currency while taking jobs from America.
Yeah, I am just not the best suited for this question. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
That's okay. I just feel like
if you really want to solve the solution, if you want to find a solution to this problem, I would just say that you look into the Neo-Austrians. Ask one of them, probably like Julia. He's very, very well versed on theory and economics. So I think he would probably be able to give you the answer that you're looking for. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to provide it.
No, I'm not trying to like. I just think that the Middle East is a good talking point, but I do think it's a bit dated, and it's a pretty easy answer to just say get out of the Middle East, which I largely agree with. But I think the most pressing issue currently is with like the South China and East China Sea and how China behaves currently, and is going to be an even bigger issue the longer it's ignored.
Yeah, I haven't looked into the issues of China as much, so I'm not informed enough to tell you our solution or how much damage it's cost us. So I don't know what else to tell you.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I just think it's important. It's in the discussion when talking about foreign involvement.
Do you guys want to
support sanctions? Because I know Trump is very supportive of them.
Yeah, he's very supportive of sanctions and tariffs. I don't think JoJo is supportive of that. I do not believe so. I did not.
Yeah. That's sort of what I mean. Most of the time, free trade is like the status quo libertarian platform, which is largely an okay deal, but it starts to become an issue at some points if not controlled correctly against countries that have currency manipulation and other large-scale issues that can, in essence, by dealing with your currency, devalue it.
Mm-hmm. I see what your concern is. I just don't have a solution for for your so said problem. Is there anything else that you guys want to go into for Biden or Trump or JoJo?
Not really.
I mean, just like I do not like Trump in almost every category, but the way that shit's getting pulled out of the Middle East, and I don't agree with tariffs as the most effective economic solution, but the fact that something is being done, it's one of the few places where I do not fucking mind the difference between that and a neoliberal.
I mean, did the tariffs even hurt China that much? I don't think so.
Yeah, they did. They definitely I don't agree with the tariffs because of course it has a backlash and it hurts American workers. But the tariffs 100% did hurt China economically, so they were effective in that way. China didn't like them, and of course we've been banning Huawei.
The US got
And covering the secrets, which is like the UK to ban Huawei. So US is leading multiple countries to finally take a stand against China. We're the ones who led this charge, and it's good to see that other countries are trying to take in as Trump has led this charge, like the UK, who have now banned China from using Huawei or 5G network because we're scared of spying on us. So I do think it helps if we start to create a gridlock that prevents China from expanding their totalitarian nonsense across other countries, because that's not going to be beneficial. I don't think.
I guess I would kind of say or kind of answer your question, James, right? Of not really like implementing tariffs, but just like kind of leading the way on a boycott at some extent.
Well, what some libertarian actions can accomplish in terms of economic action, I think, is I find subsidies to be much more competitive than tariffs, which isn't libertarian, but the fact that you cannot subsidize competitive markets per order of the World Trade Organization, but you can tariff, which I think is a pretty big inconsistency. And I'm sure that most libertarian groups wouldn't be in favor of being in groups such as the World Trade Organization, which tell you what you can and can't do as your own country in terms of trade. But like I said, subsidies themselves, obviously not very libertarian. I would argue tariffs aren't either, though, depending. I mean, everyone has their own fucking breed of everything, I'm sure. But I find subsidies to be the most effective way to retain wealth in your nation while remaining internationally competitive compared to tariff techniques.
I would agree with you to some extent, but I think that we shouldn't even be implementing we shouldn't be implementing tariffs or subsidies.
But to compete with China, we would need subsidization.
Agreed.
If you want government to be kind of an industry as well, sure.
I think it's, honestly, for me, it's less to do with competing with China. It's that they're just taking middle class jobs and just offshoring them to China because they have like slave labor there. In China, nobody has any rights in that country. So what they do is they just offshore the labor, and it reduces the labor pool in the U.S. And American workers generally aren't benefiting from it. You can say it lowers the price of consumer goods, which is true, but that net gain is lower than if you were to implement some sort of protectionism that would keep jobs in your country. That's a fact. Economics. What's that noise?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that my background? I've been trying to keep my mic muted when I'm not talking.
You're good.
It's all good. I was just wondering. Shit, I lost track.
No, you're just talking about how maintaining jobs over here instead of China.
Anyway, yeah, a lot of libertarians will argue that if you offshore goods, right, offshore workers to like China and offshore manufacturing, just like Apple has done, it lowers the price of consumer goods because you can take advantage of their slave labor and because morals out the window. While that is true, it's less than the net gain that you get from implementing some protectionism through like subsidies or maybe individual tariffs, which have worked before to keep jobs in your country. That is 100% have a better positive impact than say just lowering the price of consumer goods. Because what you're doing, you're just screwing over middle class jobs. Manufacturing.
I would say a lot of libertarianism is baked in some, or like depending on when the history of when the ideal was developed, I think you can see some flaws dependent upon that, because like international trade and being able to take jobs in China from somebody in the United States wasn't like logistically feasible at the arrival of ideals such as laissez-faire capitalism. But I would say that you could still ideologically be considered like a pure, quote unquote, libertarian if you did something that promoted the creation, production of value engines and goods in your own country while punishing the creation and value engine of goods outside of your country while remaining consistently competitive within your own borders to enable growth at home and remain consistently libertarian in the ideal of competition equals growth just within our borders.
Okay, I think we're done with this debate. Or would you not say so? yeah, I think we've talked about both policies, and I don't know. I guess the chat will be up to who is the winner or not.
If anybody wants to,
This got
Go
very
ahead.
off track, but still, this was a very productive discussion, I would say.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what the debate was coming in. I find debates and ideas of like going into win or lose are generally less productive than a conversation coming from multiple points.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
just joined at the tail end of the energy, and if a decent
Yeah,
discussion in international stuff was fine.
Yeah, I'm just not very well suited when it comes to economic and theory, so my apologies for not being able to answer your question on the spot.
Well, if there's one thing that I'd like to seal this off with, first of all, I didn't like prepare at all. Like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. Regardless, I did think it was interesting that like people with it's mostly different backgrounds. At least I was, compared to Harrison and James, were able to agree, generally speaking, on certain foreign policy actions. Like within the Middle East, we were all able to agree on that we should pull out, and especially at least with China, besides Jose, we were able to agree on some form of protectionism that would boost middle class workers. So I thought it was
I
great
think
that
maybe
I mean,
had some
like,
discussions.
it's not like Trump like supports getting out of the Middle East.
I'm pretty sure he's actually withdrawn a lot of shit with no regard for the consequences, which the best argument against could be with no regard for the consequences.
Yeah, like the third.
There was that situation in Syria where he withdrew, but he just moved those troops that he withdrew back into Iraq. It's not like he brought them home. He just moved them to a different region in the Middle East. And he's increased.
Well, to be fair, if you do look at the specifics of that region, he moved them to
He
a region which had.
war with Iran than any other president before him.
They're mostly stationary in Iraq though, because if you look at the actual region he moved them away from, it was like 5 times more violent than the movement in Iraq. I still disagree with the fact that he just moved them around rather than actually pulling them out. I do think it was like better than just leaving them where they currently were, but regardless.
Well, my understanding to a degree, and it's not one that I've spent as much time in as I probably should have, was a lot of the rearranging was to take away from specific conflict zones as the logistical issues with getting however many people back over and packing up whatever was there was definitely prescient. I thought there was a good degree of pull away from current conflict areas to more stationary areas before a full like pull out or idea that I degree could be pursued, but I could be wrong in that regard.
All right. Well, hope you guys have a good day. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I think this is the end of it. So you can end the live, Conrad, if you want.
yeah, I'll end that. Bye, everybody.
Yep. See ya.